Today I want to share 6 lessons that changed my photography. Each of these lessons has played a big role in getting me from a total beginner to where I am today, and I'm positive that they will help you as well. So number 1, look for action. I think a really popular buzzword in photography right now is storytelling, and if you're like me, when I started out, being told this was really confusing. I didn't know where to start, and I didn't really know how to include story in my photos. I really wanted my photos to have a storyline because I was told they would be so much more powerful and so much more memorable, but it was really difficult to find that, especially in photos. And so this was quite a challenge until I discovered photographing actions as a way to include story in my photo. If you look at this photo, it's a photo I took in Greece a few years ago of someone jumping into the water off a cliff. You can see this photo has a subject, the main guy jumping in, his friends, and it's also taken in a beautiful setting. So there's quite a lot going on. But I think what makes this image memorable is the fact that I've included this guy actually jumping into the water. I've captured an action which immediately has introduced a storyline. Now we don't need to dive into the actual story of him jumping in, but what it does is it allows my viewer and you, if you're just seeing this for the first time, to get a little bit more interested. If I had taken this photo with no one in it and just of the cliff, it'd be quite boring and it'd be a totally different feeling. I found shooting this way alleviates a whole lot of pressure because looking for stories when you're out taking photos is quite overwhelming, is quite difficult. And so just simply by looking for actions when you're taking photos, you're already going to include narrative in a really organic way. Lesson 2, don't always shoot wide open. If you're a beginner photographer, you might not have heard this before, but shooting wide open is an expression for shooting with a really fast aperture or a really low f-stop number. Now, shooting wide open does offer that beautiful depth, but it also differentiates your photos from something, say, taken on an iPhone. But that doesn't mean we need to shoot wide open all the time. When I started out, I was a big user of low apertures. I thought that if I just stopped down and created a lot of depth in my images, that it would really save my poor composition. This was obviously not the case. It didn't, and it led to me having a portfolio of images with really only one focal point. And if you're someone who does portraits, that's not the worst, but still I feel that shooting with higher f-stop numbers and experimenting with apertures above f2.8 is a really great step. Take a look at this landscape photo. I took this a few years ago, but if I had shot this at f2 or f2.8, not everything in this scene would have been in focus. Lower apertures lead to less of your frame being in focus, and if you're out taking photos of landscapes, that doesn't really make sense. So taking the time to think about what aperture matches up to the scene you're photographing is really important and will lead to much better images. Lesson number 3, take your camera everywhere. If we pull together all of my favorite photos, I can confidently say that about 80% of them will have been taken when I just decided to bring my camera out with me. You don't know when beautiful compositions will present themselves, so I've always found that just carrying a camera with you at all times is the best way to ensuring you don't miss out on any opportunity. Obviously, if you're going for a beautiful walk in a beautiful foreign city, take your camera with you, like don't miss that opportunity. But even if you're just going out for a wine with your friends, take your camera with you. Now you might be thinking, I don't want to take my camera out, it's clunky, it's big, it's not that pretty. And that is a bit of an issue. That's why you need a camera that suits this approach to photography. Personally, I shoot with Fujifilm cameras and they are small, light, stylish. They tick all of the boxes for me using it as an everyday carry. That's why I'd always suggest that if you're someone who wants to start taking more photos, that you do own a camera that you just like the look of. Having a camera that you like the look of will mean you'll take it out with you more, you'll show it off to your friends, you'll bring it with you to that dinner, and overall it will lead to you just taking more photos. Taking more photos means you will get better, and getting better at photography is what we're all here for. Lesson number 4 is to become intentional. I really hate to break it to you, and it did low-key offend me when I found this out, but a lot of famous photos you may have seen or you look at aren't always spontaneous. A lot of them are all set up, and it's just because the photographer had a vision and they wanted to capture it properly. Once you can get over this little betrayal, let's call it, you can start using it to your advantage. Personally, since taking this on board, I started to arrange my scenes I was photographing when I could in a way that I wanted to. Take a look at this photo. Last year, I was walking through an old town at sunrise in Matera, and I saw this table and chairs in front of this beautiful old house, and I wanted to photograph it. Unfortunately, when I walked past it at the time, the chair to our right wasn't really facing towards me, and it didn't really look that good. So I carefully moved the chair to face forward, and then I walked back and snapped the photo. This little change made a world of difference, and I really hope no one minded. But overall, I was intentional with how my photo looked, and it turned out a whole lot better. And being intentional isn't just about how you arrange things in your scene. It could be as simple as getting up early, staying out late, shooting in the right lighting conditions, or even making sure to pack the right lens for that photo you want to get. Being more intentional with your photography will put you in control, and it will lead to a portfolio that you have created, not something that's just fallen in your lap. Lesson number 5 is probably my favorite, and that is to review your work. When I was starting out, I was always and constantly looking for people to review my work. I had no idea what was good, what was bad, where I could improve. So I would just find photographers online and on Instagram, and we would strike up a conversation, a friendship even, and I'd be like, hey, can you just review my photos? I really want some advice. Doing this is a really important process I found to just getting better. Getting feedback from people, learning where you can improve, and just putting a bit of time and energy into reviewing is gonna be your fastest way to getting better. Along with that, you should also review your own work, go back a few years and just look at photos you've taken and compare them to your photos today. You can even do it as simply as scrolling back on Instagram. Either way, just looking at where you started and where you are is a great way to motivate yourself and also find ways to improve. I do it all the time. I still look at my photos from 2 years ago and hope that I'm gonna be way better in 2 years from now. And lastly, number 6, document your life and not the world. In today's photography landscape, it can become quite overwhelming going on Instagram and seeing all these incredible photographers from all over the world just taking beautiful images all the time. Trust me, this feeling still gets me, and I've been doing this for quite a while. So what I've found is by just focusing on what you can photograph and what you can control is your fastest way to not only developing your own unique style, but also just getting better in photography. If you're constantly comparing to other photographers and their experiences and their opportunities, it's gonna be a really hard road. For example, when I started out, I wanted to take photos of beautiful mountains. I was like, why aren't my photos looking like the PNW? But I had to remind myself that I live in Western Australia. And so that led to a lot of my photos becoming more bright and vibrant and more coastal. I documented my life, the people I met, where I went, and also everything I liked doing. This led to a portfolio that looks like mine. Yours will look something entirely different, and that's what makes this whole thing awesome. And so just remember, when you're moving forward, document your life, don't document everyone else's life, and from there you'll start to find it a whole lot easier. And so yeah, that's 6 lessons that helped change my photography. If you enjoyed it, please just leave a comment, like, subscribe, all that. I haven't made a YouTube video in a long time, so it's good to be back. Hope you're well, and I'll see you in the next one.